Hello and welcome to the Pause It podcast. I am Dr. Sam, and with me as always is the awesome Dr. Robert.
Hey, Dr. Sam, how you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Tired, but ready to be here with you guys and talk about something that I think is pretty cool. Just because I think it's a common misconception. I think for most people don't understand how you and I get to be where we are today.
Yeah, or like
Um,
what it entails to become a veterinarian, how like what the road looks like. Because I could tell you almost every day I tell someone I'm a veterinarian, they're like, "Oh, I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was growing up, but I couldn't do X, Y, or Z thing," you know? So it's like,
yeah,
well, I think it's important because a lot of people think they want to be veterinarians, don't really know what the path looks like.
yep.
And so we're kind of two perfect examples of there isn't just one path to vet school, right?
Nope, not at all. That's yeah, I think yours is cooler in terms of how you got to where you are, but I'm kind of
Circuitous.
boring. Yes, I'm a little more boring, but I guess traditional is probably better, nicer way of saying it. And so yeah, it's kind of it's cool. We have a lot of classmates that had some really different backgrounds who
Mhm.
eventually ended up where they are. So it's kind of nice to kind of share that today
Yeah.
and just show people things they don't know about because I think it's common misconceptions about like how long schooling takes, what you have to do to get into vet school, what you do while you're there. The pretty common questions that I get on a regular basis. So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. Well, me too, actually. And like it's kind of like what makes a veterinarian? Like how does that even happen? The funniest story that I have is when I worked in North Carolina. I was on my road, which I'll tell you all about in a minute from beginning to end. But when I was a vet tech in North Carolina, we one of the times we had someone call and just say, "So, did the veterinarians have any like special training?" And the person, the receptionist was like, they're doctors, and the person on the phone like couldn't grasp the idea that like veterinarian equals doctor. It's just not an MD, it's a DVM. But it's like they're like he was like they're doctors, they go to veterinary medical school. Like
I
it
blame
probably
that
took
on The
four different
Hangover
ways.
because that movie was like that. I think the one guy's the dentist in that movie, and
Which
he's
one?
like, "I'm in The Hangover," and they're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
"You're just a dentist," and they're like, "You're not a real doctor." I think that
right.
is kind of permeated to the veterinary space as well because they're all doctors, just
Yeah.
different types and different animals they treat. So
Well, and I mean, to be fair, there are all different types of doctors, right? There's like PhDs, they are doctors.
yep.
Lawyers are technically doctors. They're just doctors of the law, you know?
That's a doctor
So
of the law.
it's like a like echelon of education, I suppose I would say. And then it's your focus that puts you either, a veterinarian, a medical doctor, you know, juris doctorate, which is a
Yep.
lawyer. So
I'm
I mean
pressing you
there
that term.
Oh, yeah, it took me a second. I was like, "What's the term for it?" But yeah, so, but I think, no, it is true that that one line that's like, "If somebody has a heart attack, you should still call an ambulance."
Yes. So yeah, I did
Which
CPR once.
unless your dog has a heart attack, you probably should still call an
Oh
ambulance.
yeah, 100%. Even if your dog is having you, call and get on your way to the vet hospital. So,
But
but yeah. So I mean, how did you start? We'll start there because I think that's your background's a little more unique in terms of how you got started into veterinary medicine, and I would love to hear about it again because I know it's gonna be a lot
yeah, you're like, "I forgot all the twists and
different.
turns." Well, I did do a traditional undergrad, education. I went and I got my bachelor's. At that time, I had thought maybe I wanted to go into human medicine. I always feel like I have to say medicine, human medicine, veterinary medicine, because both, my whole family, they're all doctors. We have a lot
Mm.
of, my mom's, like literally, there's my mom and her two brothers. All three of them are doctors. My dad's a doctor. My sister's a doctor. Then we also
And
have
you're the
lots of
black sheep.
nurses. So yes, exactly. So actually my brother's the only one that's not actually a doctor. I just, became a animal doctor. Um,
Okay.
but at the time I really thought maybe I would go to medical school, human medical school.
Mhm.
Um, but I was also doing a lot of performance. Like I did a lot of just growing up, I was an opera singer when I was little, and then I just did lots of like plays and performing and stuff like that my whole life, right? So when I went to college, I thought, well, maybe I'll just be a music theater major, but I'll do all the prereqs for vet school, for medical school. Sorry, not vet school. Um, and then in my kind of doing that, I did all my sciences. I liked them. I always liked science. I actually also had almost enough credits to have like a secondary minor in psychology because I always really liked psych classes too. Not quite enough to have the minor, but almost. And then I did so much performing that I kind of found myself just being pulled in that direction. So I told my parents, nope, not going to medical school. I am going to be an actor. That's what I
Live the
decided.
dream.
I'm gonna live the dream, right? Exactly. So I did a little performing in DC where I went to school. Then I moved back to New York, which I'm from New York, so it was pretty natural idea to go to Manhattan. My sister was living there at the time. We're really close, so it was nice to go back to New York and be in, where my family was and everything. Um, and then, we kind of, I was like doing a little bit there. And I thought, maybe I'll move to LA.
That's where all the big stars go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had kind of started to realize that if I wanted to stay and like live in the place where I was working, I probably would have to look into maybe doing more like film, television type stuff versus theater, which was taking me on like, oh, you have to go and do, oh, go up to Cortland and do a summer up there. And then, oh, okay, now you're going to go on tour doing this. And it's like, it's not, so I was kind of like, I don't think I'll be able to like stay in New York. And I'm not at
Yeah.
that point yet. You know what I mean? I was certainly not on Broadway or anything like that. So I wasn't there. So at that point in time, I had met a casting person that was like, oh, you should go to LA. I really think you'll work. So I was like, okay, sure, whatever. I'll go to LA. This has nothing to do with being a veterinarian, but that's why I went to LA. Um, that's where I met Paul. And we actually started a dog walking and pet sitting company out in
Okay.
LA. And that is how we paid our bills. I'd actually started working with a girl who was doing that while I was waitressing and bartending, and I liked doing that better. And then she was kind of getting out of it, so we kind of took over her business, and that's how we got our start with dog walking and pet sitting. And actually it was great, being an actor, getting to take time to like exercise with dogs every day, and it's like
Mhm.
really therapeutic, I think, actually, to spend time
Oh
with
yeah.
dogs. And so we really enjoyed it. Plus then it was the people who worked for us were all actors too. So it was like, oh, I have an audition, I'll take your crew of dogs, and you know what I mean? Like, so we could kind of help each other out, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Um, During that time, I had started doing a little more theater again in LA because that was really my first love, and that's really what I like doing better than anything else. I love that type of performance. And I realized I could do that for fun,
Mhm.
and I liked that a lot better than like trying to do it for a living, which wasn't really for me in so many different ways. And then I just kept like thinking to myself like I should maybe consider going back to school. And you know how everything in life kind of overlaps on each other, right? So like
Oh
everything was
yeah.
happening at the same time. Phoebe had been sick a lot of times, which we all have heard of Phoebe before, my $1 million Frenchie. That, and so going through a lot of her illnesses while I was in LA, not really understanding what was going on, but feeling like I really should be able to understand it. Like I was like, I'm smart enough to understand this, but I really don't know what's going on. I don't really know how to advocate for her. My whole family's on the other side of the country. Um, that was definitely really hard for me. And then like all these people whose dogs I was taking care of, they would always ask my advice on things or want to know like, oh, what would you do? Or, I'm like, well, go to your vet. Like that's what you should do. And then I was like, well, maybe I should really think about going back to vet school because I never really wanted to go to medical school. And even as
Mhm.
a little kid, this age old story that everybody wants to be a vet. But I mean, in one of my first playbills when I was in a show, I said I was going to be a veterinarian when
Oh,
I when I grew up. So I think it was always there. It just I never take the direct route to do anything. So I was working as a dog walker pet sitter. Um I was doing like I had started a community theater group that I was working with. And then I went back to school in
Mhm.
California at the same time. And while I was there, it was a really awesome program that had a really good pre-vet. I just got really lucky. Like I found this pre-vet program that had helped so many people get into vet school. So there was this doctor, Dr. Shapiro. He was not a veterinarian. He actually had his PhD and he did a lot of research on cows and stuff like that. And it was at Pierce College in California. And he had basically said, like, if you do these things, you follow what I tell you, you will get into vet school. I will get you into vet school. So I went and I was like, all right, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. The way it all started, I took an animal nutrition class, had like one conversation with this guy, and he was like, all right, this is what you got to do, but you can't do it halfway. And I was like,
Okay.
okay. And so then I started working at a vet clinic while I was walking dogs and doing my theater stuff and going to school. I had a lot going on at that point in time. And so yeah, that's how it all started. And then, me, I mean, you went to school with me, so you know how I get.
Yeah.
Then joined the pre-vet club. Then I was like an officer in the pre-vet club, and I started joining and doing all the things. But that was when I first kind of started doing that.
I think that's
And
really
then
important to note too. Like
yeah,
that's an important reason probably why you got into vet school as well. Not to be a spoiler. I think people can figure that part out by now.
yeah, I
But
did. I got
um,
in.
right. But those extracurricular activities are actually really important. Like being Superwoman, as Sam is, like
Yeah.
doing all those things helps you get into vet school too. Like it's not just like a go get straight A's, like, and be a good student. It's like be a dog walker, have your own business. Like it's tough to get into vet school. There's a reason why it's so challenging, and
Yeah.
having those type of credentials is and leadership positions is really important. So
Well, and that was definitely, I think, a big thing for me as a non-traditional student. That is, I was older. I'm a decade older than everybody that we went to school with. So there was that. But I had experience owning a business. And that is a lot of people who are veterinarians have to own a business, and I think they
mhm.
liked that.
Yep.
But you also kind of have to show that you can be doing a lot of things at the same time, that you can balance, yes, you have to go to school, and spoiler alert, yes, you have to get A's. You just
Yes.
have to.
Yeah, it's good grades are
um,
important.
Grades are very important. Not to say that you can't ever falter. I had classes that I took in my undergrad that, because I wasn't serious about going to medical school at that point in time, I really didn't work as hard as I could have in some of those classes. So I went and I retook all those ones that I thought, man, I really could have showed them I could have done better. So I retook inorganic chemistry. And
Yeah.
I know, before I took organic chemistry, which PS I really liked because I'm a nerd, but I know I did.
Shameful.
I liked it. I did.
Shameful.
To be fair, I had a great teacher. She was awesome. That was by the time I got to North Carolina. So this is the whole thing, right? So I started the journey in California, and then at that point in time, Paul and I got engaged, and we were trying to decide, like, well, what are we going to do? Like, where are we going to try to figure this out? Like, you want to go to vet school, and we need to figure out, what our next steps are. Um, and so we realized that probably there wouldn't be much for Paul to do up in Davis, California. So we were like, well, and we were looking at cost of all the different schools and stuff like that. At that point in time, my sister was living in Germany and she was moving to North Carolina. So I started looking at the North Carolina schools, and North Carolina State has one of the best in-state tuitions. So I
Oh, okay.
up and moved, Paul and I, to North Carolina, established residency. I got a job just as a vet tech there. And that's where I got a lot of my vet tech experience, but I also volunteered with a large animal vet, quite a lot actually. And they were great because they would let me do a lot. He was like a farmer too, so he had his own cattle, and so I got to work on his farm. Um, and then I also worked with his other associates. I'd go out on like ride-alongs with them, and they
Mhm.
they really let me try. I mean, they really let me like get my hands in there. I mean, once you kind of people realize you're serious and they realize like you're smart, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they let you get
Two
in there.
things.
There's no reason why. It's nothing dangerous, you know what I mean? But
No,
but
but
it was
like,
really, yeah, I mean, for the animal, like I didn't do anything
yeah,
dangerous to the animal. And the owners were always there. So they were always okay with like if they were like, "Oh,
yeah.
you want to draw blood or you want to, I mean, I was a technician, so it was just drawing blood on a horse is way easier than on a dog."
Oh yeah. Way easier.
So,
So
but that was I mean, I got to do all sorts of cool stuff. Like I castrated a bull. That was cool.
that's a fun experience.
Hey, you know, um, but yeah, there was a whole bunch of that. So that was really that was a lot of me building up that experience that you were talking about. So I
Yeah.
took leadership roles in clubs, and I really just hunkered down and did the best I could in school to get A's. Just everything I did from the second I decided I wanted to go to vet school, I just was like, nope, I got to get A's. So that's what I did. Um, and then I kind of just followed Dr. Shapiro's, this is how you get to vet school.
Guidelines.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, but he was right. And it's so funny. Every year on my birthday, he knows the number of Pierce alumni that, like, I'm like Piercy number 141 or something like that he got into vet school. And
Okay.
every time he like knows my number, he puts a like happy birthday, Piercy 141 or what. I can't, now I gotta look and see what the number is. But every year, and he's the greatest man. He's just a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah. I met some great ones along the way. And then the animal clinic that I worked at in North Carolina, man, did I learn a lot there. And those veterinarians are just, they were just all smart, all hardworking, just like really, really good people.
Mhm.
Um, one like my mentor there was just this wonderful, he was the greatest. Dr. John Santilli, he passed away unfortunately, but um I can't say enough great things about this man. He was just wonderful, and we became friends. I mean, he was just like such a cheerleader for me. I think he's a big reason I got into vet school because he wrote me probably the greatest recommendation that you could get from a person. But really the other doctors, the younger ones too, they were, oh my gosh, I got so lucky. I got to see what good medicine looks like before I even became a veterinarian. I got to learn a lot of the drug names from filling things, you know what I mean? Just like
Oh yeah.
being a technician. And I will say this, I learned on the job, so I would not even count myself a true technician because they go to school and they are worth their weight in gold, and I learned on the
Oh yeah.
job, which is different. But I was curious and I always wanted to know why, and you know what I mean? So like I think I learned a lot that way, but I learned from a lot of those technicians too. They were so smart, and man, do they know what they were doing. So I
Yeah,
got
getting that
really, really
veterinary tech
lucky.
experience is huge. Like that's a you can
Yeah.
get tech experience before you go into school. Like that's a that only makes sure you're in the right profession because
Yeah.
you'll see the inner workings of like what it's like to be a veterinarian and or a veterinary technician, but also shows that you gain some skills along the way and that you know what you're getting yourself into because this is not an easy profession to get into,
No.
just in
And you
terms of
and
like
you
once you're
should
in it.
know that you like it.
Yeah.
Because I
Yes.
think there's this idea that like, oh, we're just going to be with animals all day.
Yeah, I love
No.
animals. It's like that's not enough.
Mm-mm.
Um,
You have to love people, truthfully, because you're in it for the people.
or just tolerate them really, really well.
No, but I always say it's like being like a pediatrician, you know? I mean, like
Yeah.
they can't talk for themselves just like children really can't either. You are
Yeah.
dealing with their parents and you're
Oh yeah.
getting histories from their parents. And so the unless you want to be a pathologist, that's probably the only way that
Yeah.
you are not going to be dealing with people.
That's very true. And I even met a pediatrician the other day in my clinic. He brought their dog in and he's like, yeah, you and I have similar jobs. I'm like, yes, actually we do.
Yes,
We have
yes
very
we do.
similar jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
Exactly.
but yeah, you gotta I think it's knowing what you're getting yourself into because it's I've had more than enough people say I didn't realize there's as much paperwork
Oh, yeah.
or the stresses that the profession has or why there's such a high burnout rate.
Hmm.
It's 16% for veterinarians and like 24% for technicians. Like it's crazy the burnout rate in our industry because
Yeah.
people either are so emotionally involved with their patients and that's taxing, or they just realize I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
different
it's
than what you think it's going to be, I think.
mhm.
And unless you've worked in that setting. And I think we had a lot of classmates actually that had never worked in a clinic. I mean,
Yeah.
they're very smart people that
Oh
worked
yeah.
really hard, did really well in school, did great in school. Obviously, they wouldn't have gotten in otherwise. But I mean, shadowing a little bit and working in a clinic are, I think,
Massively different.
vastly different.
Yes, 100% agree. It's a very different experience. So it's
Yeah.
so if you're thinking about vet school, get in there and get dirty and honestly volunteer. That's the way you're gonna do it.
Yeah. Or get a job cleaning the cages. Cause I mean, truthfully,
Yeah.
that's how I actually learned everything. Like the first job I had in a vet clinic, I was the kennel person.
Yep.
I went in there, I would clean everything, and then I would go sit in the ICU and wait for someone to need an extra set of hands because I had already done all my work and I'm gonna sit here and was ready to go. And somebody taught me how to restrain a dog. That's the first thing I learned. Then I learned how to help take radiographs. Then I learned how to draw blood. Then you know what I mean? It was like, because they were like, okay, you're here, great, we need an extra set of hands, and we're going to teach you how to do all
Exactly.
these things.
That's literally all it's about. It's like it's just being there in the right spot because half the time it's like, I need an extra set of hands. We come help out, and they're like, yes, of course I will. And that's
Yeah.
how many I've had so many externs or interns or kennel assistants. I'm like, yeah, I just need you for a couple seconds. Get over here,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that sounds great because
Yeah.
they want to help out, and it's a great way to learn.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also too, I mean, you're building this community. It's a small community. You'd be
Yeah,
amazed how well we all know each other and that, you know what I mean, or have heard of somebody or worked with somebody. I mean, it's a small world, veterinary medicine. And
yeah,
so you show up, you work hard, and that is, your reputation's going to precede you, I believe, and that will help you get into vet school and help you get your first job or your second job, or you know what I mean? It's really
mhm,
small world.
yep. No, those connections are really important.
Yeah.
I'm yeah.
But
So
I would just to kind of round out my story. So I was really lucky. I applied to 4 schools. Um,
that's it.
and they 4 schools. Yep. I knew
Yikes.
well, I knew that I would get in. Like I applied to Kansas. I knew I would get into Kansas. They had an interview, so I knew I would get in. It's
Hey, you know your assets. You know
like,
where your
I'll
strengths
talk
are.
my way into the school.
I will get into you.
No, but they did. Michigan State and NC State did not have interviews at the time, which I was very sad
Oh,
about because I was sure that if I could get in a door, I could talk my way in. And then I auditioned. Listen to that. See, old habits die hard. I also applied to Missouri. Well, I didn't even get a secondary application from Missouri. They wanted nothing to do with me.
mm.
Okay. I got instantly invited for a interview at Kansas. I went to Kansas. I think I was accepted 3 days after my interview.
Nice job,
And
Sam.
thanks. It was great. I mean, it was so fun. Like, I love talking to people, so I was like, I wanna go make some friends, Like, that was like I was like, I can do this." And then Michigan State, obviously, I got into, and despite the fact that the acting dean's wife wrote me a recommendation, I did not get into NC State.
Really?
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, it was their loss, our gain.
Yeah.
I'm obviously very happy by it.
Well, and in the end, I I ended up where I was supposed to be. So I think sometimes you don't really know why it is things work out the way that they do. But man, I loved Michigan State. I got in. We went to Michigan, and because my husband is from Michigan, I got in-state tuition. That was the best day of my life.
Go, Paul.
Woohoo! I know. I was like, "Hon, you just saved us $100,000."
And that's
Literally.
important to note. Like, there's a reason you moved across the country to save money. Like, vet school's
Yeah.
very expensive. Like, I don't even want to know what it is anymore because,
Oh, me neither.
oh, but
Yeah.
in-state is the way to go. So there's a reason why Sam was going across the country to find
Yeah.
a place to go
Yeah.
in-state.
And I say if you have the option to go in state, there is not that big of a difference between all of the vet schools. There's what, 35 of them now,
Yep.
maybe?
Yep.
If it's an accredited vet school in the United States, go to the cheapest one
Yes. 100%.
that you get
Because
into.
the loans are brutal and they are not
Brutal.
like we have the highest debt to income ratio of any profession. So it is
Yep.
reduce your debt as much as possible. Live like a hobo. I don't care. Just
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, get married before and then, just kidding. Just joking. No,
I
but I mean,
tried,
we
damn it.
knew. No, we knew that we were gonna, that was like something that Paul knew going into it. We all, but also I was a decade older, so I didn't want to take on a ton of debt. And you know what I mean? We had some savings, but it was not enough to pay for vet school, that's for sure.
Oh no.
So no, I mean, it was hard. And even the way they changed the laws too, like our first year, nothing was subsidized after that. So like, do you
Oh
remember
yeah.
that?
I do remember that and that was
Yeah.
annoying.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh
damn.
yeah. And so we were able
Mm.
to pay the interest the first year, but by the second year, the debt got so high that even just the interest. But
Yeah.
I will tell you, and this is a tip for those of you who go to vet school, the first 6 months you have after vet school is like you have 6 months before it, like, what is it called? Like it matures, or I forget
Yeah, like you're
what it's
the I
called.
can't remember the term for it, but when your loans
Yeah,
start, you need to start paying your loans back.
right. So you basically have 6 months before it all compounds. And so I paid off all of my interest in the first 6 months I was out of vet school so that it didn't compound.
Unless you do an internship, because I think I had an extra year for mine.
You probably had the other program that you have because you did an internship. See, I went straight out
Okay,
into practice. So
that's fine.
now it's your turn because, well, okay, I mean, here, newsflash, I got into vet school, Michigan State, with this guy. So so that was my crazy route to vet school.
I think it's a great story. I'm
Yeah.
glad I worked out the way it did because obviously we wouldn't be working together right now if it didn't. So
Yeah.
everybody wins, which I'm thrilled about. My story is far less exciting. Mine started with my grandma. Actually, she gave me a book when I was little called All Things Great and Small. If
Mm,
you haven't read it yet, even if you're not into veterinary medicine, it's just a great book about like an English veterinarian and all like the fun stories he had.
James
It's
Harriet, right?
humorous. Yeah, yep, James Harriet. I still read the books today. Like I think they're great books just in general because they're funny. But I read that when I was young. I was like, yes, I want to be a veterinarian. And then I got into college and I was like, I don't want to do all the schooling. So I went into business, fell asleep through all my classes my first year because I don't like business that much. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna suck it up and get my bio degree so I can go to vet school. So I did that finally. Did some more stuff. I played soccer in college. That helped to like
Oh
get
yeah.
me into vet school. And I was on like a couple leadership committees. I had a job during vet school as well, and that helped. One big thing that most people need to get into vet school is some type of research. Not mandatory, but it definitely helps. So like find someone to do a research study with. I did
Hmm.
mine on horse cadavers and motion, but it was a cool study. It was fun.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my journey to help get me into vet school initially. And
And you went
yeah,
like in on time, right? Like you went straight from
yeah,
undergrad to vet school.
yeah, I did all the way through. I didn't take any breaks. And sometimes I wouldn't mind having like that gap year. I think people talk about it. And I think
Hmm.
looking back, that'd been like the one thing I would have done. But sometimes some schools don't like when you take a gap year. Vet
Hmm.
school, I think, is a little bit different though, because I think they appreciate as long as you did something with it, or
Yeah.
obviously like in your case, you're a decade later, but you
Yeah.
weren't not doing anything during that time.
Oh no,
Uh,
I had a whole story. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they the thing is that they have to have a class that has some diversity and it's not just diversity of like, you know, the kind of classic thoughts of diversity, right? You know what I mean? Yes, we want that as well, right? We want like all the input into people joining the veterinary community,
mhm,
um, all walks of life, everything. But being older, being, you know what I mean, like kind of coming at it from a totally different spot adds
totally.
something to the class in a completely different way. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and it's like the first time in my life I'm considered diverse because going to vet school,
That's true.
men are not very common. So it's like I don't even know what the percentage is now, but it was like we had
Oh,
what maybe
it's
15 males
it's
and there were
gotta be
120
80
vets.
20, right? Or maybe even in like 10, 90 10.
It's really bad. It's like
Yeah. So if you're
not
male and
bad,
you
bad,
want to
yeah.
go to become a doctor, go become a
Yeah, if
veterinarian.
you have as long as you have, a little something between the ears, you're fine. That's the reason I got in.
No, that's
So,
not true. You're very smart. And you did well in
um,
school.
I got lucky with school stuff, but yeah, there's definitely a significant difference in the number of men and women in vet school. But after that, yeah, I graduated to Michigan State, and then I did an internship, which I'm eternally grateful for. It's made me a better
Mhm.
doctor today. I wasn't as smart as Sam coming out of school, so I need a little bit extra practice.
No.
But it's like an extra year of schooling, and then if I had wanted to, I could have done a residency. That's kind of like the next step if you're still in school and want to be a specialist, like neurology and cardiology and internal medicine. Veterinarians have that too, not just human medicine. We're just not quite as specialized as they are, but that'd be the next step for someone
Why
like
did you
myself.
choose not to do the residency?
So actually, this is the reason I moved to California because I was going to do the critical care residency at our hospitals to see how it was first,
Uh-huh.
and then I hope my colleagues aren't listening to this. I saw how hard it was, and I was like, you know what, I think I was out of school. I'd done my internship by taking 3 or 4 years like working in ER, and I loved
Yeah.
ER. And then what was it? Yeah, I was like, I wouldn't mind being like the next level because for instance, a criticalist is a super smart ER doctor. Essentially, they get to
Yeah.
work during the day, so it's nice. And I was like, I wouldn't
They
mind
get to
working during
work
the
during the day.
day. It's a strong advantage. All right, my nightlife. My mom likes to send me frequent emails about how I'm going to die early because of staying up in the middle of the night.
You're
So,
right, though. It's true because I don't think I
mhm.
ever saw Dr. Junkowitz or Dr. Beal after.
Nope,
They
they don't
left at
work
the end of the day.
4 or 5 o'clock. That is their time. Beal would go for
Yep.
his runs. I think Ari would too. Like there's
That's really funny.
that was
I
the life goal. Yep. So but yeah, I saw how difficult it was. Like our residents were, man, they're doing 80 plus hour weeks minimum, and they would work like 21 days in a row. Fortunately, we've lightened up since then, thank God, because that was tough. But I was like, I don't mind making a salary right now, and I like my job and I like my hours, so I'm going to just keep working. So
Hmm.
that's how I stayed ER doctor at my hospital, and I'm very grateful. They've been super great about trying
Seems like though
to.
you've continued to really learn and you learn, I mean, you learn from the people around you. So I think some people really need that structure. Like they really need to
Mm,
do the residency. They need to like, because when you're a resident, I think it's really important to understand it's not just clinical. You're
mhm.
also doing research. You're
Yep.
doing like you're really having to get like heavy into journals and you know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
you need to be a subject matter expert basically
Yep. Exactly.
all the time, and that is very difficult to do because there's a lot out there and you have to be really discerning about it. And I think some people have that intellectual curiosity. Just whenever you come up against something, you'll
Oh yeah.
research it, you'll look into it. Other people don't, and I think some people are fine with that, some people are not. I tend to be like an eternally curious person.
Yes.
So I can't leave well enough alone. So if like something comes by my crazy door and I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen this before," then I delve into it pretty closely. But I'm certainly not a specialist. I like always joke I'm, jack of all trades, master of none.
I like that one. That's and I think because when I was doing my internship, I was trying to find out like where I wanted to go because I applied for a couple of them, and the reason I went to Chicago is because one, my family was there, so I could have someone take care of my dog while I was working because that was a very important thing for me. But more importantly, one of the interviews I'd done there, I spoke to one of the current interns, and he's like, "Go somewhere that makes you feel dumb every day." And that's been kind of like just a life lesson I've kind of carried with me since then because you're not making yourself better otherwise. And
Right.
I've continually put myself in places where I feel like the dumbest person in the room. So it's great. There's some I'm very blessed to be where I'm working. I work
Yeah.
with very smart people, and um, it's a good community environment. So I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. It is really fun a lot of the times when you get to talk to some of these veterinarians that you're just like in awe of how much they know. They're so
Yeah.
smart, and
Mhm.
I really think it's like we're really lucky to be part of this community. I think being a veterinarian is like really special, and there really aren't that many, truthfully, because there's really
Mm.
up until just a couple of years ago there was 33 schools in the whole country. There's not even one in every state.
Yep.
So,
No, they're trying aggressively to try and grow them because they realize how
yeah.
much of a shortage there are of veterinarians, particularly large animals. So if you have an interest in large animal, man, you are going to find a career very easily in this
Yeah, I
field.
think the problem is that it's really hard to train a veterinarian, right? So I mean like to
Mm.
talk about like well what goes into being a veterinarian. I mean, we went to school just like human doctors. We went for 4 years
Yeah.
of medical of veterinary medical school. It at Michigan State, we did 2.5 years of didactic learning, which basically means we were in a classroom, in a lecture learning, but we did a
Mhm.
lot of labs and stuff like that. So there was some practical stuff there. We always had a little bit of hands-on stuff, I think, like here and there.
Yeah.
But then starting in our third year, we had a year and a half of clinical rotations where every 3 weeks we went to a different rotation.
Yeah.
And in Michigan State, we did not track. So we did everything. We did large animal, small animal, fill in the
Mhm.
blank. Some schools do track, and that is a little bit different, which basically means if you want to be a small animal veterinarian, you don't have to do the other stuff. If you want to be a large animal, you don't have to do the other stuff, or you can do both.
Yeah.
But guess what? When you take your boards,
It's
you
all on
gotta
there.
know it all.
Pigs and diarrhea. God, I don't miss those questions.
I had so many pig questions.
So many. I was like, "Where's Alexa Buckley when I need her now?"
Right?
So,
I know. One of our classmates became a
yes,
swine
she's
vet.
a lovely woman, and she
She's
knew all the
great.
pigs.
But here's the thing. I'm pretty sure that like so whenever you take a board exam, there's like practice questions.
Mhm.
And so I'm pretty sure that I had like a whole section on pigs that was just practice because I think that's how I passed because it didn't matter.
Thank God, because honestly, those pig questions were the worst ones, and I
Yeah,
not miss
pigs and
them.
chickens. I don't know. I just could
Yeah.
never. It just probably because I didn't care. Not to be mean, but I just didn't care.
That's probably the same boat I was in. I was like, I like cats and dogs. I'm going to focus on what I'm good
Yeah.
at.
I mean,
And
and here's the thing. I loved like we had to do a dairy rotation. I loved going and doing the dairy rotation. I enjoyed that so much. Did you?
I like the ice cream afterwards. That was great. Michigan State had some great ice cream from those
Yes,
dairy
it
farms,
did.
so I thoroughly enjoy the benefits of that.
Yeah.
But
I liked it.
this,
We went during a great time of year. It was like fall, so it wasn't too cold, it wasn't too hot. And we were outside with the cows and I got to do some surgeries and I mean I really liked going up to I think it was Green Meadows, wasn't that what it was called?
it was green something. Green, well, maybe it was Green Meadows.
I think it was.
But I do. The cows are actually really cute, and I actually like cows across the board.
I
They're
do
far
too.
less dangerous than horses, and horses are a different story altogether.
Yeah. But we
But
were
they're also,
forced to do a lot of large animal.
yeah, it was good. I think it's good for makes you more well-rounded, and I do
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think what really comes down to it is that medicine is medicine. It doesn't actually matter if you're practicing medicine and you're practicing like when I was on internal medicine, I was on large animal internal medicine and I was still solving problems and looking at the cases just like they were dogs. It was just that they happen to be horses. So yeah, okay, the things you think about might be different, but like the way you think about it is exactly the same. And once
yeah,
you learn that, that's and it's you keep learning it. I'm still learning it every
yep,
day. I feel
me
like.
too. Always learning, and
Yeah, that's why it's
that's the best part about
practicing
it.
medicine, not perfecting medicine.
That's like I should quote that. Like, yeah, trademark that. That's a good saying. It,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I
it's
didn't invent it.
well, it's smart. I like it. Uh,
Um,
but that's the main journey of, and obviously we're two examples of many of the journeys that go on through vet
yeah,
school.
yeah.
But
But
that's kind of the
I
nuts and
think the
bolts of it.
take home maybe is just like you gotta do well in school.
Yep,
There's no getting around that.
yep.
So you gotta figure out how to get A's, make friends with your teachers, bring them
Mhm.
cupcakes. I mean, you gotta get A's, or high, good grades.
Yep.
Um, and then you just have to get your hands in there,
The
try,
experience.
yep, get experience, be a leader, join clubs. I mean, all the cliche things that you think might help you get in somewhere, they're cliche for a reason. They help.
Yeah, like it's research, leadership experience. Whether if you do sports, if
Be
you can
male.
do have a job, be male.
I was
Um,
kidding.
th- I was gonna make a joke, but I'm like, this is probably not the right time in our age right now. So anyway, do really well in school and just work hard. You'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and also don't give up. There's plenty of people. We had a
Yes.
classmate that applied 3 times.
Yeah. 3 hour. Because I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
But yeah.
not just one classmate either. We have
Yeah.
had lots of classmates, some that got in the first time, some that got in after 2 or 3 tries, and they're
Hmm.
great doctors. That doesn't say anything about who they are as doctors. It just sometimes you're meant for a certain class, you know what I mean? And you're
Yeah.
renting out a different class. Um, and sometimes it's just not your time and you have to really show that you want it. And don't give up, but definitely save as much money as you can and get your in-state tuition.
And yes, in-state tuition is very important. So good luck saving money, and it is a fun career.
It is. It's a rewarding career and I'm really blessed to have it. I'm very happy that I'm a veterinarian and I'm really happy that I was in class with you.
Me too. I'm very
One
blessed
of
for
my
many
all-time
reasons.
favorite people from vet schools, that's for sure.
And now we get to hang out every Wednesday night. So you can all join us next Wednesday night.
Well,
I
when
guess,
we post on Friday.
oh, shit. Yeah, actually it's Thursday now. We moved our date. So yes, when we post
Yeah.
on Friday, you can join us for our weekly podcast.
And if you have any questions, you can always email us at
Podcast at
podcast at
mybalto.com.
mybalto.com. For a second, I was going to say pause it. That's not right. Podcast at mybalto.com. And this has been the Pause It podcast. And if you do have any questions about going to vet school, being a veterinarian, what it's like every day, or anything else that interests you, we are happy to answer it.
Sounds great. Can't wait to see them.
Thanks so much for listening.